Danielle, are you ready to call the meeting to order?
Sure.
You will need to name a acting secretary because you are acting chair.
Okay, should we do that now?
Yes.
Any volunteers?
Speak right up.
Go ahead, Andy. You're well practiced. I was telling Tammy, I just got in. I've read all the papers, but I'm just 5 minutes into getting home.
A lot of reading tonight.
Yeah, a whole bunch. Yeah, okay. I'll do that.
Thanks, Sandy.
Now,
All right.
if you need any assistance tonight, don't feel that you can't ask.
Yeah, thanks. All right, so good evening and welcome to February 15th, 2024 meeting of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the City of Norwalk. For all present, let's spend a few minutes reviewing how this meeting will be conducted this evening. For the first 2 hours prior to 9 p.m., we shall hold a public hearing on the applications you received a notice on and that were listed on the Norwalk Hour for hearing. After the application is announced by the chair and read by the secretary, the applicant will state his or her name for the record and then present the appeal or relief being sought. Please present those zoning issues that are relevant to the practical difficulties or hardships requiring this application. After you or your representative has spoken, those in favor will have the chance to be heard. After that segment, those against the application will have the opportunity to state their opposition for the record. In the case of an appeal, the zoning staff will have the opportunity to present their findings. Finally, after those against the application have spoken, the applicant and only the applicant will have the opportunity to rebut and respond to the issues raised. The hearing is then closed and the next application is called. New applications will not normally be heard after 9 p.m. as the board must discuss and act upon the applications. Please note that no further public input is accepted at that time. You are welcome to stay for this portion of tonight's meeting, but should you decide to leave, you may contact the zoning office tomorrow to learn about the decision. Before we proceed tonight, I must remind you that this hearing is a recorded video conference and will become a matter of permanent public record. For public comment period, all commentators must state their name, address, and comments must be on topic. Anyone using threatening, hateful, or sexually explicit language will be cut off and removed from the meeting and will not be allowed to rejoin. All right, so I believe we have to do a roll call.
Yeah.
Is that right? All right, so we have 5 members for tonight's meeting.
Right, correct.
And they are myself, Danielle Sanchik, Andy Conroy, Keith Lyon. Who else do we have? Tom Farkas and Ben Handpeter.
Right.
And we will be hearing and voting on all of the applications tonight. All right, hold on, let me find my other document. Okay.
Tammy, you had an announcement that we're going to make.
I do, sorry. So our first item that the acting secretary will read the staff memo to is for 23 Westmere. And I wanted to advise everyone present that the application has been revised. Those revised plans and associated materials were uploaded to the Planning and Zoning webpage of the pending applications. It is a reduction in the scope of the project, so no additional variances.
So, Madam Chairman, you ready to roll?
Yep.
First item, reading the number 23-1221-03. And it is Vail Island LLC, which is a continuation of December 21, 2023 and January 18th, 2024. Variance for front yard setback, rear yard setback, number of stories, building lot area, and of parking. On the front setback is considered a new flood compliant single family residence property located at 23 Westmere Avenue. Madam Chair.
Okay, I can take it from here.
She should call on
All right.
person representing 23 Westmere. Madam Chair.
Sure. Will the person representing 23 Westmere present your case?
Yes, my name is Dan Scharf, Federico Associates. I'm working with Tony Federico and designing and representing Allison Kohlmeyer, who is the owner of this property as well as the adjacent property, 15 Yarmouth. I'd like to just pass it over to Allison if you'd like to just kind of start the meeting. I think you got to get your mute off.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yep.
Hello, and thank you for your consideration this evening. I have owned 15 Yarmouth Road for over 20 years, been part of the Belle Island community, a former board member. Over 7 years ago, I believe, I bought 23 Westmere, and my intention is to renovate this house for some place that I can live in and have a attached garage as well as an elevator. Given the the scope of the project, I have kind of ailing joints. I love this community so much, and I hope that you will listen to our consideration, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Allison. I'm just going to sort of give us an update on how we got to where we are today. We started this process back in last fall. We attempted to file. We finally got in on November's submittal, and we were set for December. We missed the notifications by 1 day. We sent them out 9 days early instead of 10. We got to the December 21st meeting, and we heard a lot, and we got a lot of commentary from the neighborhood, and people were having trouble with the holidays, and they also had questions about the job. So we immediately agreed to postpone and shoot us into the January meeting. At that first meeting, it was also recommended that we notify Belle Island Improvement Association, in which case we did. We were able to get a meeting with them on January 16th. We did a Zoom meeting. Not only did we get the Belle Island Association, most predominantly was Carrie Fowler, who's the vice president. We had, I think there was 30 to 40 people that logged into the Zoom account, to the Zoom meeting. So it really served two purposes. It was an open discussion on what our presentation was going to be. We did a question and answer session, and we tried to focus on the Belle Island Improvement Association and the pathways as much as possible, but we covered a lot of ground at that meeting. Since that was 2 days before the next meeting, it didn't give us time to really process everything. So we appeared at the 18th meeting, and we decided to push 1 more month so that we could get some time to really meet with Allison, discuss the comments that we received and the concerns, and see if we could work on some reduction, which we did. So we've submitted that. I think we submitted that back on February 8th. Tammy circulated it to everybody or posted it. We actually got a rendering in just under the gun too, February 14th. So I can show you that. You might have already seen it too. The main objective of the project has not changed. We're working with Allison to really focus on the fact that we want her to have off-street parking, which is a requirement for new houses. And we want to get the elevator, and we want to get her set up so that she can downsize a little bit and live in this. There's no thought that she's going to put this up to sell it as a spec house. When we were consulted for the project, we reviewed the existing conditions, and we just determined that the state of the existing construction with a questionable foundation called for, it wasn't warranted to invest a whole lot of money into that, so really should rebuild. It was a cottage. It still is a cottage, one of the last remaining original cottages. We felt confident then, and we still do, due to the existing size of the building site, along with the existing topography, that this is not a self-created hardship. And pursuing the required variances was in order. The existing lot size is only 2,736 square feet in the B residence zone that requires 6,250 square foot. So we're at 44% of what the minimum is. Along with many of the neighbors are in a similar situation. It's a very tough spot to work with the zoning regulations designed for such a bigger lot. To compound this, the existing topography on Allison's site starts at 0 at the road, goes up about 3 or 3.5 feet to a wall, and then proceeds up another 9 feet for a distance of only about 54 feet back. So it's lot size and also topography, which is working against us on this small lot. Let's see. Once we applied, can I start sharing some documents?
Sure.
Okay. All right. Okay, you can see the property right here.
Not yet. Not
Not
yet.
yet.
Tammy, help out if it's needed.
I think I have to go to my share screen, right? Let me just see that.
Yeah.
Here it is, share screen, screen number 1, share.
Bingo.
Okay, beautiful. And I can mark up on this, annotate. More.
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
Yeah, let's see. I'm gonna go here. I wish I could make the site a little bigger.
Yeah.
Participants.
Well, you get it on the
Ideally.
adjacent property. Anyway, I almost can read it, but not quite.
All right, I'll screw. Let me just see. I'm usually a presenter and I don't see where my annotation is. Tammy, do I have annotation ability?
Yep, you should. Whatever features any person that comes in as a panelist can use all the features. I don't know how to find those though.
Yeah, request permission to record, captions, raise hand, hide video. Okay. So,
Yeah, I'm not seeing annotate in its normal Zoom place.
yeah, it's bizarre.
So you may have to just be able to do it through Adobe.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you can see my cursor moving.
Yes.
Okay. So the hatched area, the square rectangle, square we'll call it, is the existing house that's currently at 23 Westmere. The dashed lines with a 30-foot front yard setback, a 6-foot side yard setback, and the rear, which is 7.7 on one side, 8.7. You can see this trapezoidal shape, which allows, that's what my building setback possibilities are, my required setback envelope, and the mean depth of that is plus or minus 16 feet. I do have pre-existing non-conforming on the back of the property. I'm only 1.5 feet off of the Bell Island Passway, which is the rear side on the closed side. I meet my current regulation on the right. I meet the left and I have room to add over here. And the front is pre-existing non-conforming at 21.6 for the 30 foot. So you can see the topography as well. So that basically kind of runs through where we are with that. Another thing that I'd like to present is the picture. Okay. Here is a picture of the existing house, a couple pictures going around. Let's go here. You can see that on the back of this house, right here, you can see the topography of the passway.
Are you
Comes
showing a
down-
photo, Dan? I don't see.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
I
we're
don't see-
still
I
seeing
don't
the
see anything either.
survey.
All right. So
We're
it's
looking
on
at
the
the same drawing that we were still
Okay.
on.
Let's see. You are sharing my screen and it shows, okay, recording to the cloud. That's you guys. Encrypted. Design. So if it's on my screen,
So
Are you
Zoom
using more than one monitor?
sometimes Zoom only lets you will allow you to share just the program instead of the entire screen. So
I'm going to
you
do
might
that.
want to start over.
Share screen again. Yeah. Let's do that. And then it does do that. Got you. Here's the picture. I can just keep on switching screens, I guess. Here is a picture. Everybody see it?
Yep.
Okay, so you can see the backyard from this stockade fence over to the small one-story house, which is 23 Westmere. There is a drainage issue where the passway, the neighbor's property has just come down and it naturally feeds onto our property. We've had to put a swale in to make sure that we reroute that drainage. So dealing with the topography, we decided that we're going to try to keep the first floor where it is. We're just going to raise it up a foot. That allows us to get out of the back of the house and step down to grade and allow some natural grading to have water go away from the house. Originally, when we did our proposal, we decided to push the back wall of the house 6 more inches away from the back passway. Since we met with the neighbors and the Bell Island Improvement Association, we revised this and pushed the back wall in an additional 2 feet. So what started as 1.5 was proposed at 2 is now at 4 feet. Hey, Cher, call your father. He's calling me. Another thing, let's see where I am on my list here. We increased, I have to switch again, stop share screen, go here, share. Okay. Here's an overlay with, you can back to the survey, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, so what we did now is we pushed the back wall in 4 feet off the rear property line, which gives the passway much more room and much more separation. We captured all the space that we could legally over here for the side yard setback. We have 6.5 foot required. We're at 7 feet, and we held it tight on the right-hand side to 6 foot. So we are compliant on the right side to the side yard passway, which is on our right side. And on the back, we are 4 feet where we're supposed to be 7.7, so we're increased. The other solution that we did is we pushed the front porch in 2 feet from the front of the house, and we pushed the kitchen wall back in 2 feet, which
Let me ask
also
you a
helped
quick
us.
question. When you say increased, do you mean decreased? In other words, you decreased?
Yeah, I guess we increased the front setback, so we decreased the amount of the variance we were asking for.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, so basically back wall of the house comes in 2 feet and front wall pushes in 2 feet, and we compacted our house 4 feet in depth to add that space to the front and rear yards respectively. We also turned the ridge of the roof on this proposal from the previous rendering, which I have to switch again to. Stop share screen. Okay. This was the presentation that we had last time, which had a gable end facing the road. Some of the commentary back that we heard during our meeting and from emails received was that the building seemed like it was too big and too bulky. So we decided to turn the ridge and eliminate the attic dormers. It's worth noting at this time that even though this topography drops down, we are not asking for a building height variance. We are compliant with the previous submittal, and we're compliant with our proposed submittal. I am going to show the revision now. Share screen. This is kind of a pain, but it works. Okay. I can't show them back to back, but here is the proposal. So by turning the ridge left to right, eliminating the dormers, the roof fades back, so it definitely makes it feel like it's less bulky. The last part that we should talk about is the parking. So 2 parking spaces are required per residence in zoning. We have 0 right now. And what we did is we brought the driveway in from Westmere. We came up at the steepest pitch that we felt comfortable with, which is about 14%. And then we slowed down to get into the garage. Since my first floor was set based on drainage in the back as low as I can get, and our garage we brought up as high as we could, but we need to scale that driveway safely. It sort of leaves us with a tough situation where stories becomes a concern for the definition of Norwalk zoning. The way that Norwalk zoning, as you guys know, is a calculation across only the facade wall. So your front-facing wall, I don't have the opportunity to fill inside here with the garage. And even if we did calculations, if we didn't have a garage under, I still would be hard-pressed to design a house and build it on this site and get a cellar to not count as a story because of the 3-foot regulation. So I can expand that further if you like, but I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about.
Before you go any further and you're talking about that lower level,
Okay. Yeah.
are you seeking to be flood compliant?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we are taking this house and we are making it the basement cellar level. It's two levels. The cellar will be flood compliant with a 7'6" ceiling height is what's resulted from our first floor level and our basement. We can get 7'6" finished in there, which will be unfinished now, and then we go down another 3 or 4 feet to get to this garage level. So I could switch over to the building elevations.
Let me ask
Here.
one more real quick question. If
Go ahead.
you're trying to be flood compliant, then the bottom of the supporting structures of the first floor are at 13, 14, or 15 feet above the level that you have to be for flood compliance.
Yeah, I'll show you the breakdown on the elevation here. I will change to, you are screen sharing, stop share, share again to here. So looking at this elevation, moving this.
I can make it bigger.
Okay. Is that good to see, Mr. Cohen?
Yep.
Okay. You can see all the critical numbers down here, which is flood elevation of 15. We have our cellar elevation, which is the right half or right 60% of the house is at elevation 16. The garage slab varies. It goes from 12.8 to I think 13. So it's about a 3-foot differential to get out of the garage into the cellar, and which is compliant. So the
But
cellar under
the
the house.
existing home is flood compliant, right?
Yeah, the existing home is flood compliant. That's correct. But it's just a questionable foundation to be able to sink a lot of money into. So the garage will be below the flood elevation. It'll be unfinished. It'll have the flood vents on 2 different walls, and it'll be flood compliant in the fact that it allows for the floods to come and go. And then the cellar will be out of the flood zone. Average grade elevation is here, 19.78. Building height to the peak is 0.67, so that's an 8-inch number underneath the max allowable for the ridge. And the mean is 49.78 is the elevation, leaving a 21.81. So we're a couple inches below the requirement for mean, and we're 8 inches below the max for the ridge. Clip the corners to further reduce the feeling of bulk. And we took the 2 dormers off, so we only have the peak in the front right now. There's 2 other variances that come in there. When that parking in the front is, you guys have a regulation right now that says you can't park in a front setback in a front yard. So we're asking for that variance, and then that sort of trips into this story situation. So even though it's a 2.5 story structure, the way that the Connecticut Residential Building Code reads, because 6 foot away from my building, I go all the way around the outside. The Connecticut State Building Code says this is not a story in the basement. However, it is considered a story for your zoning regulations, which is why I'm seeking that 1-story variance. So the last variance that we have to talk about is building area. So if I go back to site, I don't think you can do that. I have to stop my share and then start my share again. Here, share. Okay. So you can see the gray shaded area is the new house, and the proposed front covered porch is hatched in here in relationship to the old existing, which is the cross-hatched version, and you can see the overlay of what my allowable building window is. So we reduced this. We brought the back in 2 feet, the front back 2 feet, and we reduced from what we were asking for in a 35% max area for the B resident zone. We were asking for 50% total, a variance of 15%, We've reduced that down by 6%, I think it is, and we're down at 44%, asking for a variance of 9%. So 5 variances are rear yard, front yard, parking in my front yard, stories because of the topo, and impervious area or building area. Those are my 5. So we did make an effort to reach out. We did hold the Zoom meeting. We've documented through all of the messages that can all be summarized in a similar fashion. There's legitimate concerns about the height of this structure. And I just want to be very clear that says that we have never asked for a building height variance on this property with either submission. And we further reduced the attic by taking dormers off to make the massing feel very small or smaller so that we can listen to the neighbors and comply to some level. The Bell Island Association also, and there's a lot of questions that ask about passways. There's increasing our sort of usage of these pathways or encroaching onto these pathways, which we've never attempted to encroach onto these pathways. We did respect these pathways in the rear yard by starting out with a 2-foot setback, and now we've doubled that to a 4-foot setback. We also had the door that was leading out the back in our previous version. We've turned that to the right side so that we come out on our 6-foot side yard setback. So there's no doors across the back of this house. We put a retaining wall, a small landscape wall is what it comes out to be, maybe 24 to 30 inches tall across the right side. You guys are looking at the site plan, right?
Yes.
Okay. Usually it's green on the outside. So we put a landscape wall on the right sides, which is a perfect delineation for the passway folks to be able to use their area, and everybody knows where it is. The wall, of course, is on our property, and it maintains exactly. So there will be some, work done over there, but we'll seed and grass and, and take care of doing all that stuff. There was concerns about safety and over digging. So now with the 4-foot in the rear, we can put a chain link fence around and make sure that we are protecting that area. We can enter from the front. We have space, once the excavation's done, we have staging area that's up inside here. We have the neighbor's garage, which is Miss Kohlmeyer's garage. So we can use that for shop area and off-street parking or building material staging, that sort of thing. We also put a wall on the left side to delineate and to help with our grading. So that kind of gives you a positive stop on both sides, and it leaves the rear wide open. So we feel like we made an improvement for the passways. We're compliant with height. We're struggling with stories. We want to make the parking offsite is a huge driving force for this, and it's part of the master plan as well. For the town, and parking has always been an issue inside this neighborhood as well as beyond. So having availability for 1 car to park inside the garage and then have 2 more spaces outside in the front yard. It's worth noting that we're falling under the old zoning regs, but the new zoning regs actually have something for lots under 10,000 square feet where parking in the front yard setback is allowed. So it seems that you guys are going in that direction anyway. So if you were to choose to allow for that to happen, it would be matched what the new applicants are going to be doing anyway. And I did another analysis just to see what's going on in the block. And are we looking at this? Let me just do this again. Stop share screen. Just for my own understanding, you should be looking at an aerial view of the tax map. If we look at Bell Island's block that we're on, which is Westmere to the west, Yarmouth, we have 15 variances that have been granted inside this block that we're on. There's only 4 houses that don't have variances. They date all the way back from 1941. There's variances for setbacks that are at 0 feet off the passway. There are area variances for impervious. There are, there's many, many. We can read through them all. We've done a lot of research, and obviously that's not allowing us to do anything specific, and we're not assuming that it is, but it's just showing that this area of Bell Island and beyond is very tight lots, and trying to deal with zoning regs that are applicable to a piece of property that's over twice the size that you are is, I think, a pretty classic definition of a hardship. Um, I would like to ask Tony Federico if he would like to add anything to this. And Tony, you would have to take your microphone or take your mute off if you choose to.
Well, I think you spelled it out correctly. My name is Tony Federico. I'm a registered architect. And Dan and I work together on this project. Just a quick note. Most of the lots, specifically along Westmere, are undersized. We're at 0.06. Most of the others are 0.07. It's hardly a difference at all. So it's not that we're an oddball case here. So that's one point. That's the only point I wanted to make. I think Dan did a very good job in explaining what we're trying to do and how we're trying to respond to both the neighbors and to the board and try to minimize whatever impacts we have on the site.
All right.
And I would like to add one more comment about the existing conditions. Can you guys see an existing condition survey that shows Westmere with 5 houses?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, you can see basically that this is the existing dwelling that we're working with, and you can see the frontage across here, and it sort of creates this line that happens, and we are very cognizant of trying to blend in to the neighborhood and trying to make this as minimal as possible while getting the amenities that we're looking for and meeting the zoning regs with parking and such. So everybody across the front here is also pre-existing non-conforming or have received variances for it. And what we're going to do is stay right in line with these houses across is where I'm going to hit this corner, and then we step back. So we are set back in our front yard, but that's just another issue, is trying to get alignment with the street. So I'd like to hand it over to the board and see if you guys have any questions.
All right. Thank you. Let's open it up for board discussion.
I'm just going to say that I thought the presentation was clear. And there are some things to weigh. One is whether to grant the variance to dig into the mild hillside and weigh that against getting more cars off the street. There's a slight turn in the road, and there's a wall on one side that's substantial. So there's a sightline issue, but we need to weigh that against getting cars off the street.
Right. And that also creates the number of stories issue.
Yeah, it does. Which, if they take a different approach and don't do that in the front to provide parking, some of the other issues go away.
I think also on these variances, it seems like the horses are out of the barn a lot and up and down the street here. So I'm not saying that compliance is the golden rule here, but it seems as though there have been a number of issues and a number of exceptions that have been granted.
Yeah, I think I wondered how far we wanted to vary from our requirement to stay within the footprint of the old house. I've lived with that when there is a give and take, and you guys have to think about it yourselves whether there has been sufficient give and take, because I don't want to see an enormous house at that location. And requiring variances. I don't care how big they build if they don't require a variance.
Right. What's the square footage increase from the old house?
The square footage increase was
From
for
just the lot coverage, you know?
building area. Yeah,
Yeah.
the existing house is 29% at 781, and our proposal is 44% at 1211. That 1211 is really, just when you think about the size of the house, the footprint of the house is only 1,074 square feet. It's a 28-foot depth by a compliant width. We're not asking for anything in left to right, but variances for the front to back, and we took 4 feet out of this house. We took a bedroom out of the house. We took some steps. So I'll stop talking to you guys.
So that was the first floor I just looked at. Is there a second floor plan?
Yes, sir. Here on the left is the first floor, which is the level above the cellar, and then the second floor. We have the kitchen and the living space up on the second floor, just for clarity. I wanted to mention that.
I gotta slide this around so I can see it.
I'm happy to zoom into either the first floor or the second floor.
No, I can actually manipulate this, which is odd to me because I've never been able to do it before. And do you have a half story above this?
I do. I have a compliant half story. Here's the cellar on the left on this plan, and on the attic, we have what we feel will be a finished loft. It'll be an open staircase up, and it'll be 49.3%, and the allowable is 60%. So we're not maxing anything out.
Is there a reason that the front setback couldn't be pulled back anymore?
Is there a reason why the front setback? Let's take a look at that. The existing
Particularly
was,
the porch.
yeah, the existing was 21.6. Our house will be 19.3. So really, we're just bringing that out 2 more feet towards the road, the corner of the house. And then the front porch, yeah, we had that at 8 foot and we reduced that down to 6 foot. We had contemplated trimming the corner of this because this is our tightest area right here. So we could trim that. That's something that I could discuss with our homeowner. But with limited site area, that is going to be a very used front porch.
I think given the tight lot, you know, one of the bigger concerns is the coverage over the you know, maximum allowed. So if the front setback can be, you know, pulled back a little bit, I think that might help make people a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, we're asking for 44%. We're asking for a 9% variance on that situation above the 35. And our existing house is 29%. So our existing house actually is compliant for lot coverage.
Are we talking about pulling back the porch? Or are we talking about the house itself?
Talked about pulling back the porch. I don't think you want to pull back the house because you don't want it any smaller.
No, the house is very small, yeah, so we could manipulate that porch. There was also a comment made about the sight line. And Dan, you may want to discuss that about cutting down that wall across our front there.
Yeah, our driveway does go up, so we do have some oversight over this wall, but we're happy to comply. I think your regulations are a 3-foot high wall, so we'll have to do work to that wall anyway. I showed a picture earlier of all the bushes that are across there. Those will be gone. That's obviously going to be a huge help to be able to get some sight lines. But we'll knock down the height of that wall to what the requirement is to make sure that we have sight lines from a standard vehicle.
Just out of curiosity, is your drawing exact?
Exact to scale, 100%.
So the neighbor's garage encroaches on Allison's property?
The neighbor's garage is Allison's other property here, and this encroaches onto the passway.
Okay,
Yeah, and I can show you in the legal site survey, which should be here from my surveyor. Yeah, he shows that I took his CAD file and we used that to start with, so it is pre-existing non-conforming.
and the pathway that goes up and down from Yarmouth goes right past that, right?
That's right, it goes right through. Todd
Yeah.
Place is the 12-foot passway. It shoots right through, yeah. And we're gonna put that wall inside here, which you can kind of see. Stop share, new share, getting a little quicker at this. Yeah, this wall that we have over here, actually, we reduced that down. Where's my other one? Let's go here, render. Bear with me, I have Alejandro. Thanks, here, this. And that's gonna make me download it, unfortunately. I'll let you look at this for a second while that happens. Okay, here, Colmeyer. This, there. Move. Yeah, this is more like it. We trimmed this down to an 8-inch wide wall and we raised this grade that's inside here. We have our stormwater detention system is going to be located in this area. It's probably.
We're not seeing it, Dan. Dan, we're not seeing it.
Oh, good. Right on. Roger, Roger. Stop share, new share. Just when I said I was catching on. Colmeyer, share. Okay.
All right,
Still seeing the
it's a different
rendering.
wall, yeah.
Yeah, it's a thinner wall because the render, I put it in 2 foot wide and it's not necessary. This is a landscape wall. We raised the grade in here. You can see the steps in the back for the side. We had that door leading out into the back passway and we respect the passways. So we came out onto our property. Clear delineation to protect Todd Place passway that runs back to the water and allows us to have some area for planting and gardening and whatever. I know that we're going to try to keep these patios because it is that second floor living and coming out on top of that, but it's definitely something for consideration.
All right, do we have anybody else, other comments from the board?
Could we just go back to the summary of the variances for a moment?
Sure can. Stop share, new share, PDF. I don't even see it on here. Let me just see, I'm gonna open it up here, PDF, and go to here, and then I'm gonna ask to screen share. Close. What else? There we go. Show all windows. This one. Share. Okay. Summary. Here's your summary, sir.
Thanks.
Required, existing, proposed, and variance required. There's my 5.
Got it. Thank you.
Well, leave it up for a minute.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
it's a good grounding.
So you end up with 3.5 stories in your plan.
Yes, sir. According to zoning regulation.
Okay, just look at the first 2. The porch makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Could I comment on that one?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to stop share. I'm going to share screen again. And I'm going to go back to. Oh, why doesn't show me everything? Here is an aerial that I'd love to show, and I have to figure out how to get you guys to see that. Webinar, close, share, here, share. Here's another view, which is Google Earth. And if I look at that in plan view, I think that it doesn't seal the deal. I don't think anything seals the deal. I think it's a compilation of our specific situation and the neighborhood and what's existing and how things blend. And I know it's not a driving force, but when I look at this line that comes across here, and even this garage, which is on our owner's site, is her other site, there is a very clear line that comes across here. And I understand that the road bends at this location, but I think we're so far set back, which far is a relative term, but in the fact that we're talking about every foot is big, is that if we were to try to stay in line with this, these are all roof structures that are out here. I'll say 3 of them are roofed and this one isn't. Our projection will be an unroofed structure. So you can see on the rendering, and I'll flip back to that, but it won't feel as prominent, say, as these houses that have a gable end facing the wall that are 1, 2.5 stories. It'll be an uncovered porch on the second floor, which I think will be, sight lines can go through it, sight lines can go over it. And based on our area, it's going to be used all the time. Really, really all the time. I'm gripping on that, and I'm gripping on the parking to get off-street parking and inside the garage. Like those 2 things are super important. So I just want to make sure that you understand my thought process on behind there is alignment on the street and the fact that it's not covered. But go ahead.
The problem becomes for the board is that what is a necessary variance and what is nice to have. And when you were talking about the front of the structure, I understand exactly what you're talking about, and it makes a lot of sense. But the thing is it necessary? And I think not. So is there a way to think about this project a little more and make sure that the homeowner, Allison, could enjoy getting out on the deck, but not have the deck so prominent?
All right. And are you thinking about how far should we take that? Is it something that you're really feeling like we should, cut it back to a smaller version or
Yeah,
get rid of
I
it?
think that. I don't know that I want to say a number, but
Okay.
I think my point is, and this is where sometimes people who come to ZBA don't really understand what we do, is we're not trying to find out what would be nice. We're trying to find out what is necessary. And with that in mind, and the fact there's a few things that are in your favor. One, you're trying to make it flood compliant.
Yeah.
2, you're trying to get cars off the street. And 3, you're nicely observing the neighborhood requirements for pathways. Those things all are in your favor. The thing that's working against you is the unnecessary increase from a variance standpoint, not from your design standpoint, but from a variance standpoint. So the less of that, the better.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I agree that, uh, that it's good to have the parking, but the parking is also creating the need for another variance. You're required to have 2 parking spaces. You're asking for 3. You could decrease some of that in terms of like what is necessary. But I agree with Andy that, yeah, the less variance that you ask for, probably the better that this will be received.
Okay, I'd like to comment on the parking situation where although I do show 3 spaces, 1 inside the house in the garage and 2 in front, it technically is 2. And there's a zoning reg that says that tandem spaces aren't allowed. So for me to be able to get 2 spaces, I would have 1 inside the garage. You guys don't count this as 1 in front of the garage, although I can park there. And this is my other space. So I'm happy to take, you're looking at the site plan right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that car out of there. I just have to make this car allow for space to come out of there. And anybody that knows that reg, am I on the right path with that?
Yes.
Okay. So I happily would say, I kind of felt it was better for me to show that I can have 3 cars off the road on this parcel than just say that I'm going to have the 2. So technically, happy to make that number 2. So that one's not an issue.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
I have another small issue. It isn't big. So the safety idea of bringing the cars off the road is excellent for Westmere. The sightline issue is a bear. And the higher the wall and the more squared off the wall, the worse the sightline is when you're trying to back out of anywhere in there. And I imagine backing out is about the only thing we're going to be doing. You're not going to have a turntable under the house.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as you build walls and try to make it look good, one of the other considerations is whether you want some of it to be curved slightly and reduce some of the sightline problems, even if it's only by a couple of feet.
Yeah. Yeah, we're happy to tier the walls. We're happy to step things down to make sure that we meet the sight lines. I don't know if we can do mirrors, if we can do electronics, is there cameras? I don't know. We'll come up with every possibility to make sure that we can get our client off-street parking at this location.
Well, you're doing it not only for the client, but for the community.
Yeah.
Haven't heard anybody say that, but I'm saying it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would
I would like to echo something that Tom brought up very early on and comment on some of the opposition letters. I mean, there's clearly been a lot of variances, as Mr. Scharf pointed out, and gave us the numbers of variances that had been granted. The staff memo, so I guess 2 points. Number of variances on this street have been granted. My second point is that it doesn't look to my eye, either from being in the neighborhood, and I've lived in the neighborhood for 30 years, that this is really out of sync with the developments, with the houses that have been built in the last 5 or 10 years. And I do think, as Andy pointed out, there's a really sincere effort here to work with the community and work with the city. And as the staff memo pointed out, the small lot size and the allowable building footprint do appear to meet the criteria for hardship. And those are my comments.
Thank you.
all right, anyone else from the board? So I think we can open it up to the public if anybody wants to speak in favor of this application. And Tammy, what's the process for doing that?
Okay, so if you're attending and you'd like to speak in favor at this time, please raise your hand using the raise your hand feature on Zoom. If you've called in, you press *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute.
Tammy, give us an idea of how many people are raising their hand.
We have nobody raising hands now because we've said in favor of, but I think we've got 15 attendees, so I think when we open it up to opposition, we may have some raised hands.
All right.
If we have no one in favor, we'll open it up to opposition.
Okay, they're raising. Should we, okay, we'll just go in order of I'm not sure what order this is, but this is the order that's appearing on my screen. So I'm going to allow the first commenter.
Have them say who they are and where they live.
Hi, this is Amy Zapatakis. I'm an attorney with Rucci Law Group. I'm here on behalf of Jonathan Agnew, who is the neighbor to the rear of this property at 17 Yarmouth. If you recall, when the applicant showed the photo of the existing house, there was a stockade fence that was shown. That fence is on my client's property. I hope that you all had a chance to read the letter and memo that I submitted at the beginning of the week. If not, I hope that you will take the time to read it. I attached some case law to that and really went through the regulations as far as variances. And I think, I haven't heard anything that would justify what this applicant is looking for. The case law is very clear. Variances should be sparingly granted and only in cases of unusual and unique hardships. And I think it's interesting that in so many of the speakers actually reference the fact that, oh, there are a lot of tight lots here. There are a lot of existing non-conforming houses, a lot of legally non-conforming houses here. And if that is the case, and it does seem to be, then what really should be happening here is your planning board should be looking at what the regulations should be for Belle Island. You should not be giving variances on every single lot. If in fact this lot is not,
Amy,
yes.
let me stop.
Mhm.
It would be helpful if you voice your opinion and not give direction to the board. We have an attorney and we talked to him today, and if we need him, we'll get him. You're not our attorney, so you might just change the tone and what you're making as suggestions.
Okay. So as I was stating, I do not believe that this is a unique situation based on what has been represented by the applicant himself. There is, this is what is being requested is a variance for the convenience of the homeowner. We have a house on this lot. It currently complies with coverage and it complies with the stories. This is not a lot that is in the flood zone. There is not currently any flood elevation issues. It's out of the flood zone. To the extent that they are digging down below the flood elevation nearby, that is self-created. And there's case law. I would cite Turek v. Milford, which talks about flood compliance not being a rationale for raising a house above the story and height elevations that are permitted in the zoning regulations. The existing house is also currently under the coverage. And the applicant pointed out that on one side, there is area within the setbacks that he could expand. So they could expand this house and stay within the setbacks and stay within the coverage. So this isn't the minimum adjustment necessary. And I think that we need to consider the impact of what is being done here on the neighbors. There are numerous walls being proposed without any showing that will not cause water impacts. Every time you build a wall, you stop the natural flow of water. There was a discussion that the way this is being designed is to direct water onto the Belle Island passageway towards the rear. And then we've got walls that are going to stop the natural flow of water. There's been no drainage review. There's no stormwater retention shown. I know there was a reference to some stormwater, but it's not shown on any of the plans. I think it's, it's important that, as was pointed out by the board, we've got issues with these walls and sight lines, not just for this property, but for all of the other property owners who drive around here. And the small size of the lot also makes it hard to get these construction vehicles off of the road. Westmere is already very tight and narrow and has these blind curves. And if we've got construction going on with nowhere on the site to store the construction vehicles and to stage, it's going to be just a traffic nightmare for everyone who lives along there. Basically, my opinion and my client's opinion is that this house is being extremely overbuilt for this undersized lot. Zoning exists to stop people from impinging upon setbacks, from impinging upon green space, and exists to stop overbuilding, which is exactly what's being proposed here. So I appreciate that the applicant has today spoken about maybe seeing if there are some ways to reduce some of the impacts, but I think a really very hard look needs to be given to bringing this down quite a bit, both in terms of the stories and in terms of the coverage in particular. Are there any questions for me?
So you're saying that there's a fence already in violation, it's on your client's property, and nothing's been done about that?
No, I was just to show you where my client's property is. That's my client's fence on his property.
Okay.
Just so you have a way of knowing where he is located.
I see. Okay, thank you.
I would like to comment on the observation about construction vehicles to construct the house. I don't think that the type of construction vehicles will change significantly if a house is built that doesn't require variances. So I did not really see the relevance of that. I also would like to point out that there are some very substantial homes have been built, some of which had variances granted. So I personally thought that the tone of the description of this proposal was a little overblown. And lastly, having served 10 years on this board, I've never heard anyone make the kind of presentation that referred so clearly in my mind to litigation. So I found all of that rather distressing.
As far as your first point regarding the construction vehicles, if the house wasn't so over coverage, there would be more space on the lot to pull vehicles off of the road. So you're right, it would be the same vehicles, but there's no space for maneuvering because the house is built to such a degree on this lot.
It's not an incorrect observation, but there is substantial construction in the area for the last 10 years, and I'm concerned about singling out this proposal based on that.
But we have dealt with this in the past. We've asked the contractor to come up with a plan to reduce the impact of vehicles and materials and equipment. Interestingly, the owner of the property owns the property next door. The little bitty garage is, I don't know if it's that small, but it's a small garage down near the road is hers. Therefore, I don't know who she might have as a tenant in there or whether she lives there now, but she could work with the contractor to ameliorate delivery problems and equipment storage problems and material problems. This is easier than most.
Did we want to recognize the next speaker?
Yep.
Okay, so we have Marty Magida.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Marty Magida. I'm the property abutting to the north. right to the north of the property. And obviously, we've got concerns here. I had,
What's your house number, Marty?
I'm sorry, 21 West.
Okay, thank you.
21. So if you're looking at the proposed property or the proposal, we're just to the left. You're facing it. So, look, the property owner is certainly well within her rights to improve the current structure. I'm a layman, my wife's a layman. We don't know this process too well, but to the extent that 5 variances are required, leads us to believe that, this is being done largely for convenience rather than necessity. There was not a lot shown in the presentation earlier. The left side of the house, there was a lot shown about the front, the back, and the side. What I can see from this proposal, there seems to be a number of things happening on the left. Looks to be a path, some sort of a stairway on the setback. There's an HVAC unit now that's hanging on the setback. So, we've got concerns about that as well. And lastly, I would
Marty,
say,
out of curiosity, have you seen 19 Westmere's application?
19, the Carol's property. I got the letter the other day. I have not seen the the drawings relating to it.
Okay, I wasn't trying to get into the details of it. I just wondered if you knew about it. That's all. Thanks.
No, I haven't seen that. And as it relates to the coverage, look, we appreciate that it's come down to, I guess now it's 44%. It's still 25%, more than 25% beyond the regulations. So, to our mind, these zoning regulations exist for a reason. If we're looking to get variances on 5 of them, it just seems to be a bit excessive.
Am I allowed to comment at all, or do I have to wait to the end?
If you're just trying to get the meeting to run better, you can jump in. But if you're asking questions, I would wait to the end.
It's
Not
just,
not the complete end then, because here's how this works.
yeah,
You guys present, then we have people come in and support you. And then we have people who don't want to support you. And then you have the right to come back and speak again and challenge.
okay,
the
it
statement.
seemed.
So
and
you
I-
might want to wait until you hear.
Yeah,
all-
let's wait.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that. I just had some comments that were specific to these two, but I'll
Make a note.
retain all that.
Make a name, put down a name, an address, and make a note.
Sounds good.
Okay, so next we have Felicia Rubenstein.
Yes, hi. You have to turn yours off. I also am at a butter at 21 Westmere along with Marty, and I just wanted to add a couple other comments in. I would very much like to see what the rendering looks like on the left side of the house that you showed, because the visual that I saw, it did not show like how high the wall is that you're planning to build on that side of the house. And I am concerned that there's going to be our wall and that wall, like how the water is going to be handled there. And also, as Marty mentioned, the utilities, it's going to be like right up to our side of our house. And we'll be hearing the air conditioning or whatever is happening there, which is of concern. And finally, I'm also concerned about the height. While you keep talking about the setback, there is a curve in the road, and it's going to be blocking all views. Whether that's, so I just want to understand that more, like, is it really necessary to add that last layer, the last story?
Okay, I think, well, there's no additional raised hands, but we should probably reference that we've received a total of 21 opposition letters. Now, some are maybe from the folks who've already spoken.
Looks like we have another raised hand.
Oh,
Tammy.
Carrie, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Carrie Fowler. Dan referenced me. I'm actually the co-president of the Belle Island Board, not the vice president, and I'm not representing the board tonight while speaking. So I don't want it to get mixed up that this is a board statement. It has nothing to do with the board. This is my personal statement. I actually live down the road at 11 Westmere Avenue to the north. And I live in one of the many sort of captain type cottages on Belle Island. And I had a question. Of the variances that were created for these other homes on Belle Island, how many of them were actually knocked down and rebuilt as opposed to being renovated?
Is that question for staff? Or?
I don't know that we can answer that
Yeah,
question.
I don't have
Well,
that
well,
answer.
the reason I asked that question is that I feel like, for instance, with my house, if we were to renovate it, we would be able to do certain things. But by knocking it down, we will be left with a square the size of our kitchen, basically, to rebuild in because of all the setbacks and all the different things. I live on the passway as well. And the reason I bring up this question is that I feel like because this is a new build, it sets different standards than for many of the other residents here that actually are homes that have either been renovated like mine, but stayed within a certain footprint, or had variances on it at that time to do things. Let's say you said it was gone back many, many years. But we do have very, very small lots, and the runoff issue is very, very difficult in the Belle Island area. We have major flooding down in the south area of Westmere Avenue. And actually across from me here on Westmere Avenue, the water has come up and flooded several cars. So I just have a few questions. I mean, I just have thoughts about with a new build, how is that handled differently than a renovation, I guess?
Tammy, do you want to speak a bit to that process of plans then going for planning and zoning review?
Okay, I think maybe the question behind the question is why not just build over the existing footprint? Is maybe that question, Carrie?
Well, no, I understand that if you have the existing footprint, there's a lot of homes here that have had to build within the existing footprint in order to stay within certain setbacks and to not have to get many variances. My neighbor just to the north of me has a home that looks similar to what Dan is asking to build. And that one, the majority of the house takes up the lot, and then there is stone and asphalt and a tiny, they have a tiny little yard similar to what Allison would have in the end. And that one apparently, and I could be a little bit wrong, but as far as I know, that was the existing footprint that they used on that property.
Okay.
And, sorry. And so what I'm just trying to figure out is I'm not necessarily asking about footprint, because I know you can do a renovation and ask for a variance and go bigger, but you have to keep a certain wall still standing usually.
No, that's not accurate. No. So current regulations allow, if the footprint is non-conforming, you can go directly above. So vertical expansion, as long as you don't trigger any additional, height variance or story variance. Building envelope in a new build is typically, if you're going to demo a non-conforming property, then you've got to build to the building envelope standard. And in this case, the building envelope is, as you pointed out, very small. And that's why they're seeking part of the reason they're seeking variances.
Well, if we look at the aerial view, the house is actually about the same size as my current house, her existing footprint right now. If you want to look at that aerial view that Dan had, I would screen share, but I can't. But my house is not much bigger than the existing house that they have on the existing footprint. And it's a 2.5 story. So I'm just saying, you know, there are a lot of these houses are narrow and long as opposed to wide and deep, which I think is the difference on that street, that they come further forward to the road, but they're more narrow. So I think even in this particular case, and then I'll let this go, but this is not a board discussion that I'm bringing up, but there is the northeast corner of this property, where the Bell Island Passway abuts the property line. The house was up to the passway. And then now they're adding another, I'm not sure how many feet, maybe Dan could answer this, but they're adding an additional area that goes into the setback where there was no house before from the passway. So in that corner in particular, there is a new setback issue on the passway. Again, this is not from the board. This is my own, I'm just noticing this. So there is a setback issue there that was created by the house going further to the north. Is that correct?
I need you to be very specific because I'm losing track of which part of the house you're talking about.
It's the northeast corner, which is the upper left corner of the house.
The one toward Yarmouth, toward your direction up the street.
Yes.
By elongating the house, they're making that stretch along the passway. It's just, it's a longer dimension of non-conforming, but they are also pushing the house further away. It doesn't quite meet the setback, but it is not as close as the current property is.
All I'm saying is that the house is wider and deeper, and the other houses along Westmere are more narrow and long. That's all I'm trying to point.
Yeah,
And thank you.
correct. No, you're correct. It is thicker and wider, both.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it? Is that all we have?
Just let me point out, if you were looking at the aerial view, because I've done that a few times now.
Yeah.
The houses along that street have nearly the same orientation. So they tend to have a narrow front and go deeper into the lot. And this became turned 90 degrees and it is wider. The question is, how deep would be allowable in this case?
If it was less deep, we'd have a view.
Okay, that was it for our raised hands.
All right. I think if 23 Westmere wants to say anything in response, that
Not
time
yet.
is now.
No, not yet.
No?
You got the letters.
Oh, are we gonna read all the letters?
Yes.
All right.
Here's the way to handle
The
letters.
25 letters.
Some are very unique. And
Okay.
you have to pull out the uniqueness. Some are saying the same thing repeatedly. And so Tammy's pretty good at this. And I was hoping to do it myself, but I can't find about 2/3 of the letters. I have a hunch that I've set my Google up wrong and not keeping old stuff. So the best way to get through it is to do a quick summary of the key points and say which letter writer wrote in one after another after another. And if you hit one that's very unique, hit the points that are unique.
Did I get drafted to do this?
Please and thank you.
Okay. All right. So this is newest comments to oldest. So the first one's Carrie Fowler. She is resident and lives on Westmere, as she just spoke. It's objection essentially to the number variance and the bigger scale of the home and the issues that she brought up about runoff. Concerned about that all of the tiny lots will then be replaced with larger houses. The next letter is from Ruchi Law Group, which is attorney Zapatakis who spoke. Now she gives very detailed, essentially recapping. She spoke to recap what was in the original letter. She cites a lot of case law regarding variance, hardship, and grants and impact.
Tonight, are they?
Yeah, and then, all right, so then, and she represented the neighbor at 17 Yarmouth, who's in the rear. Then we had Joe Wiederhorn, who opposes, they object to the amount of variances requested. Joseph Lazaroff, he actually sent an original email expressing opposition and essentially saying, you know, there's a reason there are zoning regulations, and didn't feel like it was proper to grant a variance in this case because of the extensive crowding on Bell Island already. Then he sent a follow-up, and he comments that he recognizes the revised application, but still thinks this deviates from a hardship variance, and states there's no compelling reason to approve the application. Martin Magida, who spoke earlier, a neighbor as well, he's to the north, and his concerns were the great amount of additional lot coverage requested, the stories, and he feels like it's too large of a departure from zoning regulations. Jose Francisco, either Cara or Sara, he sent an original email back in December and expressing opposition and concerned about, you know, how this will impact the community. It's too large of a scale, and then notes that the footprint is still too large, and has same objections even with the revised application. Robert Sedita is a neighbor at 8 Yarmouth, and he objects to the impact that any variance is granted, and would essentially scale again, and the pathways or pathways that are adjacent to the property. Toshifumi Beku sent an opposition letter as well. They feel like the privacy and the large homes around there are sort of infringing on privacy. They're worried about maintaining open grass area and open space, and are in opposition.
I should have said more about like this driving around here, parking here is really
Alicia, you got a hot mic.
Sorry.
Edward Queskin talks about the dangers of the road, you know, the sight line, and says this is a self-created hardship to bootstrap the size and height of the proposed structure on an undersized lot. George Broadbent, opposed to the plans, lot coverage concerns, doesn't feel like this should be granted. Concerned about the size of them. Davis Mangold lives, actually not sure where he lives, but he says he's not abutting, but he lives in the area. He lives on Bell Island, and again worries about the size of the construction in relation, the number of variances based on the small lot. And then we had Carrie Fowler had originally sent an email and talked about what she talked about orally about the runoff. Connie Bennett, neighbor who says everyone should have to follow the same rules that the city requires. This actually came in, she's at Connie's on Yarmouth Road, 29 Yarmouth. She's been there 30 years, but thinks this was too great of a scale. Then we had an earlier letter from Ritchie Law Group, that was the concerns about the hardship, but also a request to postpone. Again, that was sent in prior to the December meeting. Joseph Lazaroff, that was that was one I referenced earlier. He had sent a follow-up. Then we have Carrie O'Mahony. She says he or she says the project is much too big for the size of the lot. Concerned about how that impacts the pathways. And Stephen Revero talks about essentially pathways again, and setbacks, is not in favor of not in favor of the proposal. Jose Francisco Sara, which again, I think he had a follow-up. Adam Derrick is at 21 Rocky Point. He says the negative impacts on traffic for the construction and concern over pathways, and upsizing and coverage will affect the island, blocking sunlight and adding unwanted mass to our quaint streetscape. Felicia Rubenstein, who was one of the oral speakers, had concerns about coverage, height, but again, I think maybe in relation to how this will impact, says this could block out sunlight or view from our windows. The driveway is an issue, concerned about the driveway. And we had Carrie again. I'm not sure if I printed that twice, but that was the similar objections. And that's it.
Thanks, Tammy.
Hmm.
All right. Now an opportunity to respond, but I will ask that let's keep it brief. We've spent a lot of time on this agenda item.
Agreed. Thank you very much. Just want to reiterate that I know that there's a lot of feedback from the community, and we take everything very seriously, and we are really trying to do our best to come up with the least invasive solution to make this work. I have 3 responses. I guess I can share screen again.
If it's really necessary, I think. Otherwise, if we could just kind of get to it.
Right. It'll make it quicker if we do that. It's just easier to see, but I can iterate it. It's worth noting that 17 Yarmouth has that property is 50% bigger than ours, and they have approved setback variances on that property. That was the first speaker, Ms. Zabatakis, is that it wasn't her client that applied for them, but they have reduced side yard setbacks per variance number 94-0203-01, and front parking on their property for variance number 17-1102-01. I have more details on that if you guys are interested in seeing it, but I'm assuming you can look at what those were involved. So I find it interesting that they want to hold us back from doing something where their lot is 50% bigger than ours, and they've applied, their previous owners have applied and gotten variances from the board. Similar to next door, which is 21 Westmere. There's variances that they didn't apply for, but that property has them, and they reduced side yard setbacks on that property down to a foot, which is amazing. I'll just reference the variance number 90-0301-05. So that covers those two. That's the neighbor to the left, 21 Westmere, and that's a neighbor behind at 17 Yarmouth. And the last portion was that I really, we spent a lot of time, and I apologize, Ms. Fowler, for, you were definitely the co-president. That was a typo out of my mouth, if that's a word, but really spent a lot of time with Ms. Kohlmeyer to take what was a situation where I was 1.5 feet off the rear property line for a full width of this property for 50 feet wide and increase that to 4 feet while extending a little bit over to the left. So I feel like we made a tremendous improvement and took traffic off of that area and spun it to the side. So we listened to everything that you said as a passway situation. I don't really have a comment for what you said for you personally, but I just wanted to mention those things. And the last thing is that in speaking with my client while that was happening is that happy to poll, if that's a possibility, to poll the board to say, if I went from a 23-foot wide front porch and I reduced it to what she thinks is the minimum, and I agree, which I think is very, very generous of her, is to take 13 feet of this front porch away and reduce it to just a cover over the front door with a portico at the top would increase our, let's take a look at it. I have it on a plan right here if we can see, but I was asking for a front yard setback to the porch to be 13.4 feet, and this will make it 2 feet further away from the road. It'll be 15.3 feet away. So that variance that was going to be 16.6 feet is going to be 14.7 feet. So further reduce that, and it'll take out 13 by 6 of square footage, which I should have figured that out. 13 by 6 is 6 plus 18, 78. Yeah, 6 by 13, 78 square feet. And then however that plays into my other chart. So that'll be 1211 minus 78 would reduce my minus 78 would be 1133 divided by 2736.5 would be 41.4%. So I'd say we'd round that down. It would drop another 3% off my coverage. So I'd like to poll the board to see if you'd be receptive to that idea, if that's even legal for me to poll.
They can ask us what our opinion is. I don't
I
know
love-
about polling. Polling might
I'd
not
love
be
to
quite
ask
so
your
people.
opinion. Yeah, I would love to have your opinion, Mr. Conroy.
I had a problem with the house being too large in both directions. From the left side of the house to the right side, from the back to the front. And it seemed to me that the easiest way to deal with that and reduce it was with the porch reduction. And what you just stated and the impact it has is positive. I'll mention a couple of things that I do like, and that is, I think it helps to get cars off the street at Westmere. I live here, I go up and down that street, and I do find that with all the cars out there, people trying to walk and with a baby carriage, with their pets, it's pretty congested, and the more off the street, the better. One of the things not mentioned earlier by a couple of folks that were talking about the issues is public safety is a concern of ours as well, particularly as it attains to what kind of traffic we're creating or removing. With respect to the height of the structure, I don't see that out of the ordinary. I just hate to see you getting away from the footprint that exists now. And there has to be a very good reason for that.
I have a comment. If we were to keep the existing structure, I am unable to introduce off-street parking while maintaining that structure due to the existing topography and the condition of that building. If you picture the front of that building being excavated down to the level that parking house, it would be a monstrous underpinning situation of a questionable foundation,
Are you doing a tear down?
full tear down.
Okay. So I'm not sure I understand why you're so concerned about that, if you're doing a full tear down.
Okay, so you're saying do a complete tear down and reconstruct in the existing footprint.
Right.
I think that it does a negative to do that is that we would then be 1.5 feet off the rear yard setback onto that passway. And
Yep.
this proposal gets us 4 feet away, so it increases our separation from the passway and it makes it a better situation. And I'm not asking for any variance on left to right. Within, I guess there is that back left corner that Ms. Fowler mentioned, so there is an offset there, but I am compliant in my left to right, and I feel like we should maximize what we're allowed to do in our compliant area and only ask for variances where we are sort of forced in a tight direction.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody patting you on the back for increasing it to 4 feet or by 4 feet. I thought that was a little odd, but yeah, you're right. That does improve it for the pathway that runs along Norman. The full depth of the house, though, when you look at it in a satellite view, is fairly deep. So any reduction of that, I would favor. Now, it won't get you back to the exact footprint, but it gets you closer. And you need to think about flood compliance as it exists a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now. You're going to be required to be even compliant at a higher altitude than currently, at least a foot, maybe 2 feet as we go down the road. So the folks that dismissed flood compliance just weren't aware of that's coming down the path. We are.
Agreed. And that's why we have the unfinished cellar. We're ready to go.
All right, let's move to the next agenda item.
And nobody else has any comments, any opinions on that question I asked about reducing the porch?
No, I don't think so. I think we're all right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Andy, do we want to do item B?
Item B, yeah. Let me get some light on the matter so I can read it. 240116-01, Joanne Smith. It's a continuation from January 18th, 2024. Variance for front setback for a proposed 1-story northerly addition and a 2-story southerly addition, and variance of parking within the front setback at an existing single-family residence. Property located at 281 East Avenue. Ready to go?
Yeah, do we do the staff memo?
They did. Let's see what I got. I have all the staff members now. Let's flip through.
Yeah. A variance for a front setback. I'm just going to breeze through this. Yeah, that part we just did. So I think you can jump to the request.
Yeah, 13 for proposed, 30 required will say what it is. 6.2 to existing front porch, section 118, 350C for proposed 1-story addition, 2-story addition, and parking front setback. Analysis and findings. By the way, the house was built in 1930. Proposed additions to the home will be consistent with all other newer homes along East Avenue. The home will remain out of the flood zone. Coastal site plan review and approval from the P&Z Commission will be required subsequent to any variances granted. Amelia Williams notes in her coastal review memo that the front setback variance would allow construction to be further from the tidal waters, but would prefer a decrease in impervious area. The board may consider conditioning any variance grant with prohibiting any future living space in the storage area proposed above the garage. And Amelia Williams' letter is best summarized as I just read it. We don't need to do that whole letter.
All right. Do we have a representative for 281 East Ave?
Yes. Hi, Danielle. Hi, board. Andy. My name is Nicholas Renzulli. I'm here to represent Joanne Smith at 281 East Ave. Just kind of give you a lay of the land, if I could share my screen.
Yep.
So I put together kind of a lay of the land because I think it's extremely important to understand the larger community down to the smaller community. Those of us who live in Norwalk, who grew up in Norwalk, know what East Ave is. It's a very interesting road. It goes from the 95 corridor, which can be hectic at times, to almost a boulevard to a green. But my client has a house on the southernmost tip on a one-way road. And it's an old home. She's not looking to take it down. She's not looking to maximize building. I'd like to get across to the board that the largest reason we're here is to find the line, which we think we found at 13.5, that allows my client to build on this non-conforming lot in Zone C while still achieving green space and relief from East Ave. As we go into the other properties, a lot of them are 11 feet from the road, 5 feet from the road, and we're not looking to do that. We're looking to because we are looking to park in the front setback, which is our garage. We have achieved a legal turnaround. We have achieved a legal driveway width of 20 feet, which will allow a car to turn around on the lot without going into the road. There is a bike lane on our side, so it's super important for safety. And that is why we sacrificed the lot to achieve this. And I have a rendering. Is that up? Can you see that?
Yeah.
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 So this rendering, I'm using this rendering as a tool for a lot of things. The first, though, is the relief from East Ave and what that green space may look like. Another point is our northern addition is a one-story because we're not looking to block the sun out from the sidewalk. We're looking for my client is looking for an addition that will achieve a healthy space for her to retire in. And the current house right now is just too small for that. The basement of the house is existing and it's going to stay at 15. I think it's 15.6. It's 12 inches above the floodplain. And we are also looking for minimum disturbance from the coastal line. We are all about the critters. We are all about the native plants. And we took that into consideration. And so that line and our setback line really kind of formed our additions. And that's all I have to add. This garage to our neighbor is very close to the road, and down the street, our next door neighbor and the next house down, is very close to the street as well. So thank you.
Yeah, that garage that you showed in an elevation, is that on the one-story addition side or where? That, yeah, so that's a two-story where you have that. Is that flipped? Is that, or is that exactly how you plan it?
That is the existing house.
The one in the center on the bottom.
Are you on the rendering? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm on the first thing you displayed to us, which was not this,
The
but
maps.
it had 3 photos across the bottom.
Okay.
Andy, I believe L10 there, north elevation, that's the existing house.
Yes.
Yeah, the red one with the
Yeah.
white trim.
Yeah, the
The
cedar.
one on the bottom 3 photos, are those renderings or what are they?
Those are the neighbors. So,
Neighbor, okay, all right.
Yep.
That settles what I was wanting to know.
and the
Can we see-
addresses are there as well.
Can we see a full-on rendering of the addition of what the proposed house looks like? I only saw half, 3/4 of it, or half of it.
I only have this one, just because it was a one-way road. This is the way that you're going to approach the house. So we just felt this one was.
Tom, if you reach up and put one finger on the left and one finger on the
Yeah.
right and push it together, you'll see the whole house.
I see, I got you now. Okay.
Yeah, I just couldn't figure out what rendering was the operative rendering.
Tom, do you want to see an elevation of the front?
That'd be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, that would help just a little bit there. I think I have a grasp of it, but there we go. Oh, great, that's great.
So the existing house is kind of in the center there, and then the proposed additions in this case are both on the left and the right side. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, and the garage addition looks to have a good amount of building area up or livable space up over it.
That is going to be for storage, just because the footprint of this house, there's just no storage.
And what's the height, the ceiling height in that space?
It is, I believe, under 7 feet. So the collar ties are right at the window. They're right at the top of the window.
So that
So
could never. that
The
could never be
garage
a living
ceiling is
room.
way up. Garage ceiling is very high, is that correct?
The structure of the collar ties,
Well, inside the garage, how far up from the floor is the ceiling?
in the garage.
Yep.
The garage, it has a 9-foot ceiling or a 10-foot ceiling.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
And that'll never be a proposed living space above the garage. It's storage straight up, right?
That's right. Yes.
And if you go to the plan for that level,
Sure.
what is this, second floor? The interior stair where it says cathedral, right? There's a elevation difference between that storage floor level and that stair cathedral, like stair landing at the top of the stairs
Yes. This storage is accessible from inside the garage
only.
and also outside the garage. It's accessible from both.
Right, but it's not accessible from the interior stair side of the house.
No, it's not, but it could be. It could easily be.
But I think that's a bit of the concern, right? Because then you could kind of make a space grab for living space.
That's not our intention. We are spending the money to build a garage, and we are looking to build a garage to better the community by taking cars off the street. And there is space above the garage that we're going to build. As you see the plan, there's just no storage here. And the top of the garage, like most homes, is for storage. There also might be a head height issue here. because we're trying to keep the garage down lower than the main house, with our collar ties at 7 feet, being that this staircase is above, to get down in there, you would need an adequate 6'8" header. And I'm not sure if we could achieve that at that spot.
Does anybody else on the board have other questions? May be
Tammy,
helpful to look at the survey
Tammy,
too.
does this thing, as proposed, have a lot coverage issue? I've forgotten. I looked at it earlier, but I've forgotten what the answer to that is.
We are all fine on the lot coverage issue.
Okay. You have that large area to one side. Has a few trees in it right now.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
And that porch that we're seeing on this survey, is that porch the existing porch or is that modified?
That porch is modified, and I see this 14.2. We are absolutely not looking to encroach in the rear yard setback. That number is not correct.
So the correct number is?
It is greater than 15.
Nicholas, I don't know if this is going to help you or hurt you, but you're allowed a 2-foot encroachment for a projection of a deck.
Okay.
I think that's why the surveyor designed or had asked me about that.
Okay. Yeah, I just called Gregory and I saw that and I was like, we're not looking to do that, but okay.
It's allowed.
Okay.
And the setback, the front yard setback that you're asking for is 13.5, so that's to the house.
Right. And then, yeah.
But the porch is also being modified?
The porch is not being modified. Only the shaded shapes are being modified.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
And I'm sorry, are you still on the water review for this, or you're totally compliant? I didn't know if there was a memo on that.
We are putting the CAM application together.
You're still,
But
yeah.
We are strictly out of the FEMA line.
Okay.
That was a major part of our design. You can see how our design actually jogs around it. We want absolute minimum disturbance, when we dig, and that goes down to the sequence of construction and how these machines are taken out, and we are fully conscious of that. Yep.
You have a copy of the Amelia Williams, who is a land use planner, memo of January 11th, 2023. Coastal site plan review of 281 East Avenue.
I do not.
Okay. Let's go to the bottom of it. I'll read it. However, the proposed additions contribute to the amount of impervious area on the site. Minimal development near sensitive coastal resources is preferred. It is encouraged to reduce impervious surfaces and conduct construction related activities as far from coastal resources as is possible. It is a benefit to the application that no work is being proposed in the flood zone, although it is important to consider the potential impact of a rise in sea level, coastal flooding, and erosion patterns. This lot appears to be susceptible to erosion given the site slope of the site. Though preservation of coastal resources is implied, enhancement of those resources would be consistent with section 22A-92 of the Connecticut General Statutes. The request of a variance of the front setback requirement helps construction to take place farther from the tidal waters, but still increases impervious area. And she just issues a thank you at the bottom. So she's not in love with what you're doing, but she didn't say stop him at all costs, put the army out in front of him. I think you need to think about what you're doing a little more. I mean, you can't make a building semi-pervious. At least I don't know of any engineering way to do that. So if you have more impervious surface because you built more building, it creates an issue right next to that pond.
So I'm confused. You read a memo that states our impervious coverage exceeds the lot?
The proposed additions to the home will be consistent with other newer homes along East Avenue. That's the first sentence. The home will remain out of the flood zone. Coastal site plan review approval from the P&Z Commission will be required. That's from our memo. And then from her memo, however, the proposed additions contribute to the amount of impervious area on the site. Minimal development near sensitive coastal resources is preferred. It is encouraged to reduce impervious surfaces and conduct construction-related activities as far from coastal resources as is possible. It is a benefit to the application that no work is being proposed in the flood zone, although it is important to consider potential impact of the rise of sea level coastal flooding and erosion. This lot appears to be susceptible to erosion given the slope of the site. Though preservation of coastal resources is implied, enhancement of these resources would be consistent with the statute. The request of a variance to the front setback requirement helps construction take place further from the tidal waters, but still increases impervious area. So she's not saying to us, don't approve it, but she's saying it raises a question. And so the question is, can we reduce the impervious area?
Well, I think we took that into consideration by the shape of our footprint. I mean, 15 feet for a setback line is back here. So we chose not to encroach, and we chose to make this a one-story. We chose to go very minimal.
Well, one story is as impervious as a 2-story, a 3-story, a 3.5 story.
Right.
They're equally impervious, pretty much. I mean, blowing wind might affect it differently, but in general,
right. But
covering the land.
This lot is allowed a maximum amount of impervious coverage. So
I don't know. I think you should go think about this and come back.
I'm just confused at what I'm supposed to be thinking about.
So I want to interject. I want to interject and clarify that zoning regulations currently don't restrict
Yeah, I know.
impervious surface. And so he's okay with his zoning lot coverage, but what Amelia is pointing out is the impervious surface, the impact for the coastal site plan review.
I could look to make, I could look to use a product that allows the driveway to be
Semi-pervious.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yep, I could do that.
I mean, what Andy's also noting is that the span or the amount that the building is covering, it is making that condition worse, right? The kind of impervious coverage. And when we look to grant variances, some of that kind of spreading out of mass in the house is also something that we take into account.
Mm-hmm. And Tammy, before we get too deep into this, because I still think we need to have this thought about some more. Where the space above the garage is not habitable, what kind of variance might be needed, if any, to make it habitable? and reduce the 1-story and make it go away. The 1-story addition.
So currently, if I don't, under current regulations, that
Well, you know,
level
clarify what you mean by in the current regulation. In a couple of months' time, the
in
new regulations take effect.
on Monday, the new
4 days.
regulations will take effect, where the height is regulated in that attic space, in that space above the garage. Currently, it could be, according to zoning, they could occupy that space, they could finish that space. That's why the staff memo suggests conditioning, if an approval is granted, conditioning that it not
But
be allowed.
if we want them to get rid of the 1-story, and could they then put essentially what is a 2nd story over the garage?
Yes, potentially. I mean, I guess you could, maybe is the question, should they reduce
It
the
would
pitch?
reduce the total footprint of the building,
Yeah,
taking care of some of the concerns of Amelia Williams.
yeah.
Okay, anyway, maybe that could be thought about, be discussed with the client, and we could take this up again next month.
That's a pretty big reduction. And we are completely compliant on the side yard setback. So I'm not sure why we wouldn't be allowed to spread north or south. The,
I think it's because you're right next to the pond. And you have trees and an open green area, and you're gonna take
I mean-
that down and put a building there. I think
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
the
right
issue.
now, you're essentially asking for 2 additions that neither of them are compliant with your front yard setback.
well,
What
they can't be
Andy's proposing is essentially
here.
1 footprint that is not compliant. Well, like
Correct.
1 additional footprint that is
I'd
not
have to-
compliant.
Yeah, I'd have to talk
One
to
in
my
the current
client.
design. In the
Because the
current
front yard
design.
setback's back here. So this lot is in zone C, it's just not buildable with its depth. And we're also up against the pond. So, I hear what you're saying, Andy. I understand that you're looking to reduce the footprint by potentially putting the primary suite on the 2nd floor, which means someone would have to climb up the stairs if they're elderly. You know, we put that on the 1st floor so that wouldn't be the case. Yes, the
Well,
first,
there are solutions for elderly people having to go to a 2nd floor. I'll probably be looking for that shortly. What we need to do though is pay attention when we sit next to a pond like this and we have green space and it's got trees and you want to build into it, and how necessary is that? And I'm suggesting it's not. So you could build a 2nd story. How you array the rooms inside that building, the house?
where are the trees are next to the house over here, you're saying?
Well, where that house is located is a green area right now. I mean, it's obvious in photos and looking at Google. There are a few trees in there as well.
What do you
These
mean
are
by a
good
green
things.
area? I'm sorry, I don't know what that means.
If you take the building as it is now, you have green lawn and or bushes and or trees in that
Sure.
location.
Sure.
They go away.
Only because the lot has not been developed. And a coastal drainage, erosion, and grading plan would address all that. And that's really our next step. Are you suggesting that we should put that together?
I'm suggesting if you reduce your footprint, you're going to have a better building.
Okay.
Maybe you don't reduce it the way I suggested. Maybe there's another way to reduce it, but it seemed to me that's the simplest, but maybe not.
It just becomes a completely different house.
Oh, well, not entirely. You have an existing structure to which you're adding on.
Right.
Anyway, I still think delaying until next month would be a good idea, and you would discuss with your client what possible changes you might make.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Don't have to do it, because I'm not running the show. But
Well, we want to, we want to better the neighborhood. So that's why we're here. That's why I'm
Right.
here.
anyhow, Madam Chairman, we could, do we have people that have come to talk about this? Maybe we should find that out.
Yep.
Give
Do
me
we
just a
have
moment. Yeah, I have to
anyone who wants to speak on this?
Okay, so again, we have 10 attendees still. So if you'd like to speak on this item, you can use the Zoom feature to raise your hand. If you've called in, you press *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute. There are no raised
Yeah.
hands.
All right.
Oh, sorry. Oh,
So
spoke too
the
soon. We
the
have,
presentation doesn't
Hold on.
have,
no, sorry.
I'm just
we
gonna
have-
say, there's nothing who's opposing. No opposing thoughts have been presented. There is some concern from staff. And so if we ask this to be thought about for another month and then possible changes coming back in before we address it again.
We do have somebody who wishes to speak from the public.
So should we do that now?
Yeah.
All right.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Diane Cece, Olmsted Place in East Norwalk. Also on the East Norwalk Neighborhood Association Board. So I am, well, I'm not really used to speaking before the Board of Appeals, so this is a little new to me. I wasn't aware that you look for speakers who are first in favor and then opposed. I'm neither opposed nor in favor. I basically have a bunch of questions and suggestions and wanted to point out some technical questions that I have. But based on what I just heard from Mr. Conroy, I'm wondering then if the applicant is going to agree to postpone this and go back and take those things into consideration. And in that case, I may then withhold my comments until they come back. However, I'm afraid if I do that and then you end up taking a vote on it tonight, that, my comments may not be heard, so, or my concerns. Whereas I wish that I had had time to send something into Ms. Maldonado, but I wasn't able to do that. So I don't know if you can answer that. If maybe Mr. Renzulli can indicate if he intends to come back with this, or if you're looking for a vote tonight.
I could move that we have a continuation of this item to the next meeting. Is there a second? And then we vote.
Okay, then Mr. Conroy, if that's the case, then and I send in questions and concerns to staff, then those would be addressed as you're reviewing for the next then there would be a public hearing continued, correct?
Correct. And
Is
then
that what
the
you
applicant,
recommend?
Diane, the applicant can come back. I don't think they will, but could come back and say, we're not making any changes. That would be unwise, but they could do that. So I would expect there'll be something different for you to look at. So you want to see what's coming down the pike.
Okay, yeah, and if I only get one bite at the apple, I think I want to do that. And then in the meantime, I'll go ahead and send some new concerns in to Ms. Maldonado. But I will say tonight that I agree with you, Mr. Conroy, with where you're heading with this to reduce that footprint seems to be the way to go. And my concerns are really based on that as well. So I thank you. And then I guess I will see you next month. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Diane.
Yep.
There is a motion on the floor that we continue to next month.
I will
Is there a
second that. Second.
Tom is seconded, and Ms. Chairwoman,
All
if
right.
you would put it to a vote.
We all want to vote? Everyone in favor, say aye.
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 Seems like everybody. So this is continued to
Right.
next month.
I didn't see one of our members. Ben, did you vote?
I heard Ben. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right,
It's done. We move on to the next one.
item C. Want to keep going?
Please.
You mean with the meeting?
Yes.
The time. Yeah, let's
It is
continue. Anybody
getting late,
object
but
to continuing? I think we should continue. People
right.
have to sit around all day listening to us.
yep.
Next is 2402-1501, Serge Geo.
EO, that's correct.
Okay. Variance for front setback. Let me switch paperwork here and find the staff report. Your address, so I'm getting the right one. 17 Rome, right?
Yes, that's the one.
Okay. It's front setback 20.5 proposed, 30 required, 24.8 existing. Section 118, 340C for proposed front porch and one-story addition at an existing single-family residence in a B residence zone. I think we know where it's located, but it's also District 5, Block 6, Lot 54. The applicant seeks relief to allow a proposed front porch and small one-story addition to be located entirely within the front setback. This is an existing single-family home built in 1948. The front of the house is non-conforming, encroaching about 5 feet into the front setback. Analysis findings: the dwelling's existing location, nonconformity should not be the sole consideration in granting relief. While staff understands the desire to have weather protection at the front entry, this is not a zoning hardship because it doesn't peculiarly affect the parcel any more than any other of the properties on the street. And that's it. Ready to rock.
That's me. I'm on now.
If Madam Chairman decides, though, yes.
Oh, okay. I'll wait till I'm told to speak.
Sure. Why don't you go ahead?
All right. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I mean, this should be pretty simple. I sat through the first two presentations. We just want to add basically an entryway. So this is an old style cape built in 1948. So the door opens up into the living room. There's no closet. There's no place to kick off your shoes, hang up your coat, set down your bag, groceries, anything like that. And so we propose to just add a porch so you can step up to first floor level, and then have an enclosed entryway with a closet and you know, as I said, just a place to kick off your shoes before you walk into the house. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
All right.
What is the one-story addition? It's not clear to me what that.
Yeah, I don't know
Good.
why that. I
Yeah.
think maybe they're just saying because it's an enclosed entryway, maybe that's considered the
Yeah,
one
Tammy,
story.
could you share the plan? I think that would be helpful for
Yes, thank
the
you.
conversation.
Yeah, give me 1 second.
I'm the
Probably
owner,
just
by the way, I'm neither the builder or the architect.
Yeah, we're,
You own the home?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm getting there. Sorry.
That's
Okay.
okay.
I should mention that many of these capes, I think they're all built around the same time. Many of them have added an entryway of some kind.
If you look down the street, would the front of your home appear weird compared to everybody else on the street?
I don't think so.
Because that does happen. Some requests come in and
Yeah, no, I think this is
they
within the
protrude out a lot
character of
farther
the,
than everybody
Yeah.
else.
it's within the character of the house and the neighborhood, in my opinion. It's no bigger than it really needs to be to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish.
We see the screen?
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, Andy, looking, the houses immediately on the right both look like they have little covered porches.
All right. And this protrudes how far?
About 4 feet.
All right. Good, thanks.
So this is the addition part because this is enclosed.
That's correct.
And then this is the open porch.
Yes.
And the open porch protrudes no further, disregarding the steps up to it, than the little addition part.
No.
No, it does not.
Okay.
The addition is what's driving the non-conformity, not the open porch, or is it both?
I guess it is
Yeah,
both
it is both,
because it's over the setback.
But isn't there, Tammy, an exception for the open porch
No,
that's 6
it has
foot
to come
by?
off of, it has to come off
8
of a
foot.
conforming wall, and so they're not conforming, so.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right. Otherwise, it would be a non-issue, right?
Yeah.
Well, the open porch. you
Yeah,
could do
The
yeah,
it.
no, I
enclosed
understand,
part
yeah.
is, yeah.
Mhm.
So your two neighbors at 19 and 21 Rome Street, I'm just looking at this on the map. Like, it looks like the facades of each of those houses are like perfectly in line with each other, but your two neighbors each have a little,
Yeah.
covered porch thing. So are those like, were those built that way? Are those technically like legally non-conforming, or does it not count because they look, I'm just poking around on the street view here, but they look pretty like open to me.
They would count, so they may have been installed without permit, or, I mean, I don't know how old they are. Maybe they got variances, I don't know.
How old is the house? Didn't we have a date for the house?
1948.
Well, that could be part of the answer.
Yeah, I don't know when setbacks were set, but it could be that they were established after the house was built in the first place, right? That's probably not uncommon. I don't know how those things work.
I couldn't figure out exactly what happened there, but it seems several of the houses are non-conforming, but the original subdivision map shows the 30-foot setback. So
Oh, okay.
I don't know what happened.
Someone measured wrong.
Okey-doke. I don't think this is all that complicated, but in terms of non-compliance or the need for a variance, Tammy, spell it out precisely.
So you would be, the current facade of the house is at 24.8 from the front setback, and you'd be reducing it by 4 feet. Or increasing it by 4 feet, I guess.
Right.
That always throws me. You're talking about reducing the amount of setback by 4 feet, correct?
The amount, you're bringing portions of the existing nonconformity closer to that front setback. So a further encroachment, but a
So we're
modest.
reducing the front setback.
Yes.
And the amount is 4 feet, and it's across both the steps area plus this little alcove being built.
Yeah, about 20 feet.
Yep.
Width-wise.
Okay. And what reason do you give that you need to do this?
Just the fact that the front door opens directly into the living room of the house. And that's actually, it's a cape of the way you actually, you walk into the steps that go up to the second floor. And then immediately to your left is the living room, and immediately to the right is where we have the dining room one side, living room on the other. And so, and there's no closet. There's just no place to put, where we hang our coats on the banister, right inside the door. So really, it's just it's for functionality, and just to make the house a little bit more livable.
So you're saying that to have the appropriate use of your property, because of the way it's constructed and exists at the moment, that you want to do the porch and alcove.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right. Does anybody else have any other questions?
No.
Me.
All right. I think with that, we'll open it up to the public. We got any
Okay.
raised hands?
Attendees, it's the same instruction as before. Raise your hand with the Zoom feature. If you've called in, *9 to raise hand, *6 to unmute. No raised hands.
All right. Then I think we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Yeah. D, Carol Hayes. Quickly off the agenda, variance for front setback and side setback for 4 proposed LP tanks, and variance of side setback and rear setback for proposed generator, and variance to exceed lot coverage maximum at existing single-family residence property located at 19 Westmere Avenue.
Back to Westmere.
Yeah, back to Westmere, and I'll read the staff report. I think we understand what it is. It's at 19 Westmere Avenue, District 6, Block 33, Lot 14. And we know what's wanted. Want to put in propane tanks and a generator. A background: existing single-family house built in 1900 with predating zoning regulations adopted 1929. There are footprint nonconformities and maximum lot coverage is nonconforming as well, over 300 square feet beyond the maximum. Analysis and findings. While the home was built prior to the adoption of zoning regulations, the existing nonconformities are not sole justification for granting a variance. In addition, these appear to be a compliant location for above ground propane tanks adjacent to the existing exterior wall, labeled G on the survey. We have the survey up. I want you to go ahead and do that, because what I'm going to do right now is switch computers.
So, Chris,
All right, let's.
Why don't you finish reading this, Tammy?
you said for me to bring the survey up?
Yeah,
No,
that, but
Did
also continue reading, because my computer's about to stop, and I'm going to bring up a second one.
Is the applicant going to share the screen, or do you want me to share the screen, Chris?
Did we make it through the analysis and findings there, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So yeah, let's have the applicant for 19 Westmere make the case. And if you can share the screen, that'd be great.
Okay. Unfortunately, I am unable to share a screen.
All right.
My name is Christopher Reeb, and I am helping our applicant, Carol Hayes, with this installation. And if, Tammy, are you able to share the plan?
I'm calling it up. Give me just a minute. It takes
Thank
me some time, sorry.
No problem.
All right.
Can you see it, or?
We can see it. Yeah. Thanks, Tammy.
The location for the generator was selected as it's the only location that we are able to find on that site to meet setbacks from house openings, such as a window or a door or a vent. If the generator were located on the right side, we would not be able to achieve that 5-foot setback from the house. the concern there is carbon monoxide purposes. So the owner is willing to eliminate the grill deck. If we bring in the generator 2 feet from the back and 3 feet from the right, that would meet what we need for the generator requirements, being from a fence or any other structure. The gas tanks need to be a minimum of 10 feet from any source of ignition. So while there is room to set them against a stone wall and have them behind the front setback, it's too close to the air conditioning unit that's just above that stone wall. So after spending quite a bit of time on this property, this is what we came up with. I did see a note that there was a talk of a propane tank being buried, but a buried tank has to be 10 feet off the property line, a building requirement. And that would put it in the center of the driveway. And I don't see how we would be able to bury it anywhere else.
The staff memo asks that where it's called G on the drawing, where just north of zone X, and proposes that as a compliant location for the propane tanks. Was that location considered?
There's an through the wall air conditioning unit on that side of the house, and we cannot maintain 10 feet from that. So it was considered, but we can't fit it in.
So the AC unit that's right next to the letter A, is that what you're referring to, or there's something
No.
else that's not shown on this survey?
There's something else that's not shown on the survey, and that is a through the wall unit on the right side of the property, right in the middle of that wall that the arrow was moving on.
A window unit?
It's not a window unit. It's through the wall. It looks to be like a 3-season porch that was converted to, closed in.
So it is permanent, is what you're saying?
It's a sunroom that's there.
Both of those statements are correct.
What's the propane being used for?
The propane is going to be used for powering the generator.
And heretofore, there was no generator, there was no thought of putting this in until now, that's all.
The truth is there is a generator. It's installed in the basement and not very safe or wise.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's not a good place for it.
Right.
The generator that was in the basement is a diesel generator. They were legal to be placed in the basement. I had it for 35 years and then it just conked out. I can't complain after 35 years, I guess.
Oh, you got your money's worth.
Yes, that's correct. To get a new diesel generator, they're so big, there would be no way that I could get it into my basement. So I had to go with propane.
Yeah, these things are kind of
Which
noisy.
has to go outside of the house, of course.
They're kind of noisy when you crank them up, aren't they?
The diesels, yes, they are. The gas generators are much quieter.
Could we figure out a way to be more positionally compliant?
Chris, I thought that the generator was going to be placed down at the back of the driveway here.
We did talk about that as a possibility for that location. Then the question then becomes, what do we do with the propane tanks?
They were going over in the corner, and I think according to our measurements, we could get close to the steps over here, or even the wall up here. The ramp can come out, that's movable.
I'm certainly not opposed to putting the generator, if the board would like the generator to be in a different location and swap it with the propane tanks. I can do that. The generator then.
I think you want as quiet a generator as you can, both in the way the generator operates and its location on the property.
Agreed. So, if we put the generator down on the driveway, it has to be elevated because of the floodplain.
Right.
Okay. How much?
I think we calculated a minimum of 4 feet, if I'm not mistaken.
I think more than that, the spot elevation says 9.8, and the requirement would be that the bottom of the platform would have to be at 16.
Yeah, so that's 8 feet, and so that would be another 7 feet in the air.
That is substantial.
I wouldn't think that would be wise. Thank you for that.
But I think you do need to work out a way of not ending up with an annoyance to the neighbors. And you want to be safe with the propane too. I'm not a big lover of propane tanks, but certainly propane is an economical alternative.
Do you experience a lot of power loss? Do you generally get a lot of power loss and necessity for a generator?
We used to, but a few years ago, we had a power outage of a week.
Yeah, we did. Actually, 10 days, if I recall.
Long time. The house behind me, directly behind me, across the passway, they have a gas generator in their yard on my side, and it exercises once a week. And I have to say that it's very quiet. It could never be a disturbance to me. My air conditioning unit makes more noise than that.
The neighbor that's got that near your property line,
Yeah.
is that near where you originally talked about putting the generator? You're going to have dueling generators then?
Well, I can't point. Oh, I can. Okay. Their backyard is over here, and the generator is probably about in this position.
So we can't see where you're pointing.
Yes.
I can see. So if you put it in that rear corner, then we would have dueling generators. And the only thing would be, what about the properties if you're on Westmere looking at your house, they'd be to the right.
Correct.
That's what, 21? The guy that was on earlier talking about 23?
21 is the next house. Yes, 21 is the next house.
Yeah. So how is he set up, either with generators or other noise-making things on his property?
Well, he has an air conditioner about here. Everybody down here is air conditioners.
Well, you're also close together. Somebody's going to be making noise for somebody else. I mean,
exactly. That's right.
Are you increasing horsepower? Are you increasing horsepower with this? Is it an upgrade, or are you just moving this? You're all crapped out, so you're getting.
This is new. The old one failed.
What's the horsepower? Is it a big powers the house?
Yeah, powers the house.
Yes.
That's a large generator. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's the smallest footprint that we can get.
But I do think the position needs to be looked at a little more.
Yeah.
And you want to reduce the impact on any neighbor, and you want to make sure the LP tanks are positioned safely. I'm a little surprised you don't want to put them under the ground. Whatever.
Well,
under the what?
Ground. Underground.
Well, I think one of the problems there is that there's rock ledge down here. In order to put it under the ground, they might have to blast.
Oh.
I have
right.
rock
So
ledge in my basement.
So you have rock throughout your property.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Okay.
I'm not sure that the center of a driveway would be an ideal location to bury a tank. I mean,
No, it wouldn't.
Right.
unless you're suggesting that the tank be placed in the front yard, which is going to be right.
Well, it
in
wouldn't be
the-
anywhere near the generator.
It has to be 10 feet from the generator. It has to be 10 feet from the house. It has to be 10 feet from the property line.
And
So-
if you go across, I can't tell if that's the house or a yard. I think it's yard.
Where?
Opposite from where you were just pointing out. Is that also rock?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, there's no telling where the rock is. I know I have rock ledge coming right into my basement.
Okay.
And I know that when I had the driveway put in, there was rock ledge there then.
So, yeah,
Bell
it
Island
would
is
seem
full
to
of
be
rock.
difficult to put it underground.
Yes.
Right. And Andy, if you have a suggestion for the generator without having it be 7 or 8 feet in the air,
No, my generator is very loud.
I'm
I
open
use
for it.
I use it sparingly because it is so loud. And if I were to go out and exercise it, I would have the neighbors standing at my front door. I'm positive. So I only use it when there's an emergency need.
Is it a portable generator
Yep.
or is it
Well,
permanent?
it's portable in theory. It is
Okay.
heavy as can be, and it takes 2 people to move it. So
Well, the permanently installed generators
Yeah.
have a decibel rating of 68. And that's fairly quiet.
does this one that you've chosen have that rating or less?
Yeah, it has that rating.
Okay.
And again, because of carbon monoxide issues, distances from the side and the back, I don't see another spot on that lot that is safe to install it unless you prefer the variance in the front yard.
Well, the front yard works up to a point, but I was hoping to deal with the LP tanks also, and get them underground. But you're
We-
telling us that you can't
I don't believe that
reasonably
that's,
be asked to put them
I
underground.
don't believe that that's possible. What I do believe is possible, if you see a better thing, and I'm not suggesting this, I'm looking for solutions that would work. We could swap the propane location with the generator location and put the generator location in Mrs. Hayes' front lawn, but I don't see that as being practical because it still would have to go up in the air.
Yeah, no,
And aesthetically, it's not going to be great.
Well,
Yeah,
it wouldn't
well-
have to go into the air if you put it here where the cursor by the landing. Because that's out of the flood zone.
This is the front yard here.
Yeah, that I
Right.
have the
I
cursor.
mean, I don't think that my neighbors would be pleased at me putting a generator in the middle of my front lawn.
Right, and
Probably not.
we would need a variance there as well.
Right.
So
Well-
the propane tanks are silent, and I mean, if it's a concern of seeing them, we could ask our Mrs. Hayes to put a fence screen in front of them.
I'm happy to do that. No problem.
I do think that that would be a condition.
Sure.
yeah.
I had decided to do that just for myself because I don't want to be looking at
it.
Agreed.
Yeah, what I would think you want to do is be as quiet as you can for the neighbors and safe as you can with the LP.
Yeah.
My question here is, where is on lot 19 there, where is the house of your neighbor? On the other side?
21
Yeah,
over on
yeah,
this side.
yeah.
lot 19, I think she was.
Just from the survey there is what I can see, but yeah. Like relative to the generator, like that back corner.
The
About
front
6
of the
feet
house,
away.
from what I remember, comes out almost to the front of her house. And 23 is back in further. So I think it was long. In other words, you have a small front and a long building.
Yeah. I'm just. But it looks like there's some tall fencing between the properties.
Yes. And there's fencing along the back.
All right.
And the generator of the neighbor along the back is close to where she would put the generator if she put it back there.
That's across the passway, right?
Well, it's probably
No.
from the fence at the back of my property, there probably is 20 feet to their generator. But, you know, I hear it exercise every Monday morning. It's really quiet. It just hums. I mean, if anybody is bothered by the humming, that's their problem, I think. It's not the problem of the generator. And when all the air conditioners get running around here, there's lots of noise. They make a lot of noise. The generators do not make a lot of noise.
Anyway, Madam Chairwoman, do you have a suggested location?
To relocate that stuff? I mean,
I don't have a problem with it being in the back, which takes care of the elevation issue.
yeah, I think the generator is best located in the back.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I did like Tammy's suggestion of the propane tanks being further up the hill there.
Yeah.
But
I wish we could.
yeah,
I mean, we would certainly honor that if we could, but we have building compliance issues. We can't be, propane tanks can't be within 10 feet of a source of ignition.
So how are you going to make these flood compliant? Are you going to elevate these propane tanks? Or is the fill cap going to be?
I don't believe that the propane tanks, according to our propane, we are not the installer of the propane, but we're representing them. And I don't believe that they have to be above the floodplain. They have to be.
The fill cap has to be. You can alternatively anchor it, but the fill cap has to be BFE +1.
They need to be anchored, exactly.
And I don't know how high they are. So that's why I'm trying to say that it's possible that they might have to be elevated if the fill cap isn't BFE +1.
What, sorry, say that.
The fill cap
The
needs to
fill
be
cap would
above-
have to be at 16 feet.
And we are at 9.8 where the propane tanks are?
Yes.
Yeah.
all right. One last question about the propane tanks, right? So the driveway is essentially hemmed in by a retaining wall, but you're proposing putting the propane tanks just shy of that dash line, I assume is the 30-foot setback, which is not all the way at the back of the driveway, which would
Correct.
be, and
Which
that
would-
is why?
And that's because we need to maintain 10 feet from the air conditioning unit.
Is it possible to have a consultant, someone who has an overview of the whole project, to come in and make a recommendation to you? It seems like we're kind of like hunting and pecking
Yeah, I do
for a
too.
solution, and neither of us, I think, has a degree in this.
Well, I mean, we can work with the board in any way that you feel is necessary. We're dealing with the professional from the propane company, and then us with our experience on the generators and their locations and what's required by the buildings department and doing that.
How movable is that air conditioning unit?
It's not. It's actually a heat pump that was installed by the people who built the sunroom.
Okay. That's cool.
I never use it, but I know that doesn't make any difference to you because I could go in there and use it.
Sure.
And then that would be non-conforming. But
Well, I don't know that-
I never use it. And another thing I want to point out is, although this is the 100-year flood line, the only place that I have ever gotten water is in about the front foot of my driveway, right on Westmere Avenue, because Westmere Avenue slopes up. So when it floods very much in the south part of Westmere. But up here, I don't get flooded. I never got flooded. And the only time that 1 foot of water came in there was during Sandy. All the other hurricanes and horrifying floods that we have down here, I didn't even get water even there in my driveway. Never. So I know that this 100-foot line, is significant, but this generator is not going to be around for 100 years, nor are the propane tanks.
Well, the propane tanks are your current issue. I think you kind of figured out where the generator can go. But Carol, there is an issue about water rising above the fill tanks on LP. So that's got to be worked out. And I don't think we've worked that out yet.
I mean, I get that. But what I'm saying to you is that I have never had water
I understand.
in my driveway except for that
line.
front foot.
But the line is the line, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. But lines can be impractical also. We're projecting 100 years. I won't even be here in 100 years.
Well, I hope that you get a lot more years, but in the meantime, we need to find a compliant way of handling this, because when the building department gets a hold of it, if you're not compliant with the regs, they're going to tell you no go.
Well,
So-
that's
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, we're compliant with building department regs with our proposal.
Not with flood regs, though, possibly.
Not
Pardon
with possibly not with flood regs. That's correct.
Okay. I think that needs to be solved. And I've got no problem with what you're doing with the generator, but I do think you got to figure out what you're doing with the LP tanks. Could be that you have to create a structure there to lift them up. I don't know, but you're going to have to deal with it.
Okay, so in theory, if we address the propane fill with a raised structure, then, and we leave the generator as proposed because that's the safest. Is
Yeah,
that?
I haven't heard any board members say they didn't like that location. So it comes down to the LP tank and the filling of the LP tank, and is
Okay.
it safe? And what you want to do is you want to know that the building department is going to pat you on the back and say, okay, and that they're happy campers.
Most certainly, we would do that. So, okay.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be our next step, Carol.
That would be.
Whatever.
Okay. Okay, we will take that and return.
Right. You want to do another continuation, Madam Chairman?
I think that is what's called for here.
Thank you
I
for your
move that we
time.
continue to the next meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor?
All in favor, say
Favor.
aye, raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. We got Ben.
Yeah, sorry, I
No,
was
that's-
muted. Aye.
All right,
Okay,
continued.
we're good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you.
you.
Good night.
Good night, Carol.
Good night. Thank you.
All right, so then what do we have to vote on? that's not continued here.
Well,
Let's go, should we go backwards in order?
let me look at my list here briefly.
Sure.
So we asked Serge to do something specifically. We asked Carol to do something specifically. So they're both continued.
No.
What? No,
Not
we didn't
Serge.
ask
Not-
Serge.
Did we
We
pass?
asked, we asked,
that
no,
was
no, we
281
asked
East Avenue.
281.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we got one more to go back. And so we have two continued.
yes.
Rome.
So we have items A and item C to vote on tonight.
All right.
Do you
pick
want to
them in
start with
whatever
item
order you
C?
want 'em. You which?
17 Rome Street.
17 Rome.
Yeah.
I'll move that we accept their plan as proposed.
I will second that.
I will second that, okay?
Can fight to second it.
third
All
it.
right.
And the difficulty they face is the design structure of the building as it is and how you enter.
All right. All right. Let's vote then. All in favor, say aye.
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 Looks unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Have a good night, everyone.
I almost continued you. You gotta, you're lucky stars here.
We'd love to come
Wouldn't
back
be the first
sometime.
time.
Hey, you guys really got
3
a
months.
long
You'll
one.
know where to find us.
Yeah. We learned a lot. Thanks so
We
much.
did learn a lot. Thank
Sure.
you.
All right. Last one. 23 Westmere.
Uh-huh.
Probably has some discussion here, huh?
I think so.
I think you touched upon the porch reduction. I think it might be nice to see if we could take a look at that porch reduction and what that might mean and look like aesthetically and for your client, whether or not they would go for that to at least decrease that variance.
I do think that they didn't quite go far enough in hearing they reduced it a little bit from the kind of first time we saw it. And it does seem like they didn't quite go far enough.
I'd like to see a proposal that gets down to the 35% lot coverage. I didn't see a super compelling reason why they were over it to begin with. I think the trying to get the parking off the street, that's admirable. So I'm willing to kind of give them a pass on the stories. And the combo of the front and rear, it's a small lot. Like I get it. And they were within on the sides, but I think there's other things that can be done to kind of like carve it down so that, they're not having to ask for 5 variances. Like it's quite a bit. So I think there's a way they could get it down to 35, and I'd like to see them present on that. That's my take.
I don't know if they can get to 35, but I think they could get under 40.
I mean, given that they started at 29,
Yeah, except, think what they're trying to change here. So I'm not certain that could be done. But anyway,
Yeah, I mean, that was my take. It just didn't go quite far enough. And I don't know if the
Mhm.
number is 35 or 38 or whatever, but I do think there's room to trim there.
how about you, Tom?
I mean, I would like to see the further reduction, but I think the porch would be a good place to start. I don't know what you can do more about the sight lines. I mean, there is what's the speed limit there? 5 miles an hour?
Yeah, it's 25, I think. They had 15 at one point, but I think it
Are you
got
kidding?
got pushed back up to 25. There's a court case in Connecticut about 15 being an unreasonable speed limit. Anyway, so I think it's at 25, but there are people that go through there at 40 or 50. That's the real issue. And it's real narrow because the street's not real wide and people park all along the far side away from the
Right.
stone wall.
Right. Yeah, I've walked around there. It's difficult.
I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever driven through there like quickly.
Well,
Yeah,
you'll
it's
know
real
it if you're there.
hard to get through there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the issue of it being a sightline problem for cars coming out from the brick wall or the stone wall rather, that's a real issue. It's an issue of having more cars on the street, that's a real issue. So pick between issue A and issue B.
Well, can we ask for an adjustment of both the, well, right off the top of the back, the porch and the sideline there to cut down any obstruction that might hinder anybody's sideline? It's difficult enough. Is that too
Well,
much to ask?
it goes, Tom, it goes from the wall just above the street, right? And the wall for most of that area is about 5-6 feet tall. But what he was talking about was grading it down gradually so that it wasn't 5 or 6 feet tall all the way out from the edge of the drive.
Right.
And instead of squaring it off, maybe coming in and arcing it a little bit. So that would give more visibility to a car coming out and for the car driver to see what's coming down the street.
That's right. Yeah, it's as equally tough to get in and out of there with the traffic.
Yeah. So, I'd like to see them tackle this and come back and talk to us again next month. I hate to have another continuance since I seem to be continuance happy, but I want to see the changes actually.
I agree. And if the continuous is the best mechanism for that, then I think that is what we should do.
And next month, I think, when I was talking to Tammy, is the last month so that we can take this too.
That's correct.
It's got to be
Decision.
decided by then.
Right, March 21st has to have a decision.
Okay. I think we'll be ready.
You're going to go on vacation, so you're not here for this one?
Oh, definitely. No, I'll be here. All right. Do we want to make a motion to continue?
I don't want to be the only person.
I'll make the motion to continue.
And I'll be happy to second it. I mean, my read was that Mr. Scharf was asking for whatever input we could give and would be looking to come back with his client, right?
Yeah.
Deal with this challenging situation where it feels like people want to lock the barn door after the horses are already out, but that's an editorial comment.
I mean, I also agree with that.
No, I think you can't get perfect, but I think you can get very, very good.
I think so too.
Or at least much better.
Yeah. All right. So let's, I think we got to vote on that. So all in favor of the continuation, say aye.
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 All right. See you back next month.
So what? No. Did you skip over something?
Oh, well, we got to do the minutes, but
yeah,
I met Dan. We can see Dan next month. All right. Oh, where are the minutes? I must find them. Does anyone, has everyone reviewed the minutes?
No, but I'm ready to vote.
I have.
Right. Any comments?
Comments from me.
No.
Did we spell Letty's name right?
Oh yeah. Well, he won't know.
I don't even know.
We did. No, we did.
Should have messed
Cool.
it up just for an Easter egg.
So I move
right.
adoption of the minutes. Need a second?
I'll second.
Second.
All
All
vote?
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Who's
All
no?
right.
Then we
Now
got
we
status of
conclude.
training. I thought we were trained.
Oh,
We
Yeah,
are.
I put the update that we're all trained up.
Yeah.
Okay,
Cool.
so
Great.
that's all we need to know. We're great. We're good to go.
Yeah.
motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
I'll make a
Motion to
motion.
get
I
done.
want to go eat dinner, so we
I
got
will
to get.
second
Yeah,
that.
me too.
You gotta get dinner before.
Thank you.
All
everyone.
right.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks,
Yeah.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night,
Thanks,
everybody.
thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Night.